Y'all, I honestly can't believe I'm saying this, but I am a rising star. Welcome to the Brandon Market Podcast, the show for short-term rental owners who want to turn their listings into legacies. I'm your host, Allie Haney, owner and co-host of multiple properties and founder of Brandon Market, where we help Airbnb hosts and short-term rental investors build intentional brands, smart marketing systems, and guest experiences that actually move the needle. Each week, I share practical strategies, real-life stories, and behind-the-scenes insights to help you attract the right guests, increase bookings, and run your rental like a business, so you too can be the best in your brand and your market. Let's dive in. Today's episode is going to be a recap of Level Up Your Listing Summit 2026. First, let me set the stage. I'm going to tell you what Level Up is, and then I'm going to tell you a little bit of background and the story behind it as to how I even got to be in attendance there. So Level Up Your Listing Summit is a short-term rental conference that is geared mostly towards women, and it is co-founded by Natalie Palmer and Tatiana Taylor-Tate. Natalie is an owner, a short-term rental owner, as well as a co-host, and most of her properties are in Big Bear, California. And then Tatiana is also an owner-operator as well as an interior designer. And she actually just had her debut on HGTV, so you should give her her TV show a watch, because how cool is that? So Level Up Your Listing Summit, like I said, it's for short-term rental owners, operators, designers, co-hosts, property managers, anyone in the hospitality realm is really going to be a good fit for this conference. I love that one of the things about Level Up Your Listing Summit is that they ask you for feedback and they actually listen to it. So you can tell the kind of evolution of Level Up Your Listing over the last 4 years. That's how long the summit's been around. This is my second year going, so I've only been around for about exactly half of the times that they've gone live with the conference. But I could tell a difference just between last year and this year. And I know that some of the feedback that I put in the form after last year was taken to heart, and I could see it being put into action this year. Let me give you an example. Last year, I felt like it was a very design heavy, like educational side of things. I think they also got some feedback on the VIP ticket. I was not part of VIP last year or this year, but I do know that, like, just generally speaking, the VIP tickets were different this year. But this year, instead of it being design heavy, they had a really, like, a bigger emphasis on investing as a whole. So, backstory, Natalie is kind of shifting and pivoting her own business from short-term rental coaching over to raising capital for another brand called For the Love of Upstate. The owners of For Love of Upstate plus Natalie all got on stage and taught us about capital raising, which is super helpful as Heather and I, which I'll touch on Heather more in just a second, as Heather and I move into this next chapter of our real estate investment journey. They also had multiple lenders there, one of which specialized in like helping you creatively finance deals, whether that is your next short-term rental that's a single family home, or if it's a commercial deal within the hospitality space. That could be like a micro resort or a boutique hotel. Oh, and finally, they had another woman there whose name is Stephanie Zenos, and she was all about like diversifying your investments and really walked us through, like, as entrepreneurs, how to create a retirement account and how to diversify your investments across your entire portfolio, not just real estate. So you could tell that as the summit is maturing, the speakers and the topics are also evolving. And so I really love that about this conference, is that even if you go every single year, you're going to get something a little bit different. Now, if you have been around a while, you guys know that I went to Level Up Your Listing Summit 2025. So it was last year. And it was so incredibly impactful on my business that I ended up purchasing a ticket for this year, 2026, right there on the spot. I will link the episode in my show notes of my recap of 2025. But let me just give you some highlights. I went to that conference last year in a real rut of my business, both brand and market and our short-term rentals. At that point, we had Kentucky and the Commonwealth, and we also I was co-hosting my mother-in-law's house, which is the homestead at Cunningham Creek in Virginia. I was just hitting a wall. We thought we were going to sell Kentucky. We were happy with how the property was performing, but we weren't there anymore. It had a lot of like raw emotion wrapped up in it, and I just wanted to be done. So when I went into Level Up Your Listing last year, I went in with the mindset that I was going to be selling Kentucky by the end of the year, or at least putting it on the market by the end of the year. My entire trajectory changed after that, after attending the summit. I signed up about 4 or 5 weeks before the summit actually took place. So it was a pretty short runway in terms of like attendance and figuring out travel and accommodations and all the things. But I remember seeing the Instagram ad and being like, Caleb, I think I need to be in this room. And I was so grateful for his support that he was like, okay, then go do the thing. And I booked the flight kind of on a whim. A lot of times at these types of like events, people go with friends, they go with buddies, they go with industry, colleagues. I did not know a single other soul in this room. I had not heard of Natalie and Tatiana before this. I was, like I said, down and out on my short-term rental, just vibe. And so I kind of rolled the dice and I didn't really know what I was getting into. I just had this like gut feeling I needed to be there. So I went and I met an incredible group of women. We held each other accountable throughout the year. And then by the end of the year of 2025, I had become really close with a woman that I met at Level Up named Heather. She was in that accountability group. She was the one that helped me underwrite Luna. She's a realtor in Maryland, and she basically helps you figure out whether an investment is good or not. And so if you need help, I have created her brand and am working on her website actively. But especially if you're looking in Berkeley Springs, West Virginia, she specializes in that area. Although she's a realtor in Maryland, she's got really great referrals and connections in that area because that's where some of her rentals are too. Anyway, shameless plug for Heather. We became really close and we decided that we were going to go to Level Up together this year. We were able to have a really awesome girls trip and tag teamed like the whole event basically. This year they switched it up. Like I said, they're really good and receptive at feedback. And so they transitioned from everybody always being on the main stage in order to then have breakout rooms this year. So Heather and I would tag team the breakout rooms. She would go to one, I would go to the other, and we would swap notes at the end. So it was a really great event. And if you guys, sometimes I record these out of order, but I believe that last week aired the episode about potentially purchasing a boutique hotel. And if you heard me talk about a Heather in that episode, this is the same Heather. So we were able to gather that information about capital raising and varying the investments and the creative financing in order to equip us in that potential deal. So that was really cool that we were able to reconvene and continue to build the relationship that we had last year. Another awesome connection, and I feel like these types of events, the education is like top tier. Don't get me wrong, but I think if I had to choose either the community and connections or the education and the speakers on stage, I would always choose the community and the connections. So another one that I had from last year was Matt Sanderson, the co-founder of Strike or STRIQ. It's this really awesome app. And the best way that I can boil it down is it's the Zillow of short-term rental investing. So basically this app populates the MLSs from across the country and they underwrite the entire deal based off of comps in the area. So when you're looking at think of a Zillow or a realtor.com map and you're looking at all these little different dots of homes that are for sale. Well, all the dots are not the same color. They are 3 different colors. Some are red, some are yellow, and some are green. And basically what that means is red, this is not a good short-term rental investment. And I'm saying short-term rental specifically. We're not underwriting this to be a long-term rental or anything else. This is short-term rental. If it's yellow, it probably needs a little bit of a closer eye. It could be good, but we might need to underwrite this a little bit more in depth in order to know whether it's a good investment. And of course, green means go. So it's a really great investment and you should jump on it because it has a high cash on cash return. So that's the app that he has created. There's a lot more layers, a lot more capabilities that I'm skimming over. But just to give you the Reader's Digest version, that is an incredible resource that I learned about last year. Matt and his wife, they came back as sponsors this year as well. And so I was able to catch up with them, learn more about their investment journey. They purchased another short-term rental this year that they are thinking about creating or making into a wedding venue, which of course is something that I have background in. So I was able to chit chat with them about that property, and they are getting ready to release STRIQ or Strike 2.0 at the beginning of May, which has it was already a really great app, but has even more capabilities now where they are including AI. They are on the cutting edge because one of the other co-founders is very AI savvy. And so they are using those strengths to then pour into their users. So you guys should go check them out. It was really great catching up with Matt, and I'm going to do my best to get him on the podcast. He'll be hopefully the first repeat podcast guest that I have on the Brandon Market podcast. So one of the other people that I was finally able to meet in person was Brianna Amigo of Brianna Michelle Interiors. You guys heard her on the podcast a couple weeks ago because she is the interior designer that designed Luna with all of those cool, quirky colors and murals and pieces of furniture. So I actually learned about Brianna and the existence of her company that she does data-driven designs at Level Up last year. She was on one of those design panels that I got to hear from. And so when I was going to interview interior designers for the short-term rental that we purchased in November, she was on my short list of people that I knew I needed to talk to. So we ended up moving forward with Brianna, had an incredible experience with her. You should go back and listen to that episode with her as well, because it's all specifically about the designing of Luna. So I got to meet her in person for the first time since we've been working together. And it's honestly just so nice to a Zoom call is great. Love it. Has given the capability to work across the country with people, right? My business could not function without video calls. But to see someone in person that has really poured into your business for the first time ever is it's just irreplaceable. I got to give her a hug and thank her for doing everything that she's done for Luna. And that was just a really exciting moment. She was asked, because she did such a great job last year, to return for another design panel this year. And she shouted me out on stage. One of the questions that was asked was, if I come in with a vision that I want for my property and my design, how willing are designers to be able to execute that vision? And it was just so funny that that was one of the very specific reasons that I went with Brianna, was because I came to her with a specific vision and she was willing to run with it and take her expertise, pour it in, and make it even better than I could have made it. And so she was able to give a real life example of somebody in the room that I've done this for her and she was happy with the result. Please go talk to her. And what more proof in the pudding could you have other than that? So that was a really cool connection that I was able to make in real life. The next connection that I was able to make in real life was actually with one of my clients. So I will link, we are still working on her direct booking site, but she's got her social media up and running and we are managing it, posting 5 times a week religiously. That is Alexis, is the owner of Victoria House Sevierville. I'm the brand girly and I still feel like I cannot do this story justice. Every single nook and cranny of Victoria House Sevierville has a story behind it, but let me just give you the basics. Victoria House Sevierville has been in Alexis's family for over 100 years, and almost every member of her family has lived in this home at some point in their lives. It's now 5 different units, and she converted what was previously a boarding house into essentially a boutique hotel. So these 5 different units, each of them has a very specific, beautiful, on-brand theme. One of them is the Tennessee Suite. That's all after inspired by UT, University of Tennessee, including an orange refrigerator, which I thought was wild that she found. One is inspired by the Coat of Many Colors, the Dolly Parton song. So it's a lot of patchwork quilts in there. One is Love is Like a Butterfly. So all pink inspired. Love is Like a Butterfly is another Dolly song. The next one is the Songbird Suite. So it's got Dolly Parton and Elvis everywhere, including a pink Cadillac desk inside of the Elvis room of that suite. And finally, the Smokies Suite. So all Smoky Mountain inspired. Throughout this entire home, she has pulled together some of the most beautiful local artwork from local artisans. She's supported like thrift auctions and taken literal years to curate everything that's within these walls. And that doesn't even begin to scratch the surface on some of the personal stories that she has about the connections in the community that have inspired this home. I had mentioned that this had been in her family for over 100 years. Her grandmother's name was Victoria. They called her Mum, and she ran a boarding house out of this home. And so this place has always been inspired by hospitality and travelers and comers and goers. And so she's really bringing back the spirit within the walls of this house. I just love every single story that she tells me. Every time we speak, I get a new layer to this brand story, and which is really her life story. And I was able to not only meet her, but spend dinners with her and have deep conversations with her. And for me to be able to be a service provider and have that extra added level of relationship helps me bring your brand and your story to life even more. Is it feasible that I get to meet with every single one of my clients like that? No, but when the opportunity comes, I'm so grateful for it. And Alexis and I have already purchased our tickets for next year, Level Up Your Listing 2027. So you can catch us. I don't know if they announced whether it was in Phoenix or not. I'm just such a loyal attendee that I will be there regardless of where it is. Say it's international, I'll be there. But Alexis and I have already signed on for LUYL 2027. And I'm just excited to continue that relationship with her and also bring her direct booking site to life. If you are looking for a very unique, very themed, very curated stay in Sevierville, Tennessee, that's a little bit different, or I should say a lot bit different than the typical mountain cabin, I'm going to link her social media and the show notes. And once the direct booking site is up, I will link that as well. We do have a landing page up, so I'll go ahead and link that, victoriahousesevierville.com. And then the last community/connection, I'm sure I'm going to miss someone, but I guess these are the ones that are still just like so fresh in my mind that I was able to make was with a gentleman named Brian Hatcher of Hatch Capital. He was a presenter. I actually met him last year very briefly. This man is just so humble that like I didn't know who I was meeting when I met him. He is starting multiple micro resorts, one of which is in Georgia, and its name is Ukio, and it is Japanese inspired wellness. And I'm just so in awe by the way his brain works, because we didn't really keep up, I guess, throughout the year, but I did follow him on Instagram after I met him last year. So like I was keeping up with him, but not conversing with him. This year he came back and he was not an attendee anymore. He was a presenter. And so I touched base with him right when we first got there, just because his booth was like right as soon as you walked in. I was like, oh my God, I didn't realize that you were presenting. And he was not presenting on how to build a micro resort, which he would be more than qualified to do so. He was actually presenting on how to incorporate AI into your short-term rental business. And I kid you not, his presentation had everyone's mind blown. So let me give you an example. Okay, he's going through and he's telling us all the different types of AI that you can incorporate into your business. So every different piece of AI has a different strength. For example, and of course I could refer back to my notes, but I'm going to try and just pull it off the top of my head. Gemini, for example, is owned by Google. So it has access to YouTube, Google Images, all the things, much more like creatively based. So if you're going to create some sort of graphic or image for your business, Gemini would be the best AI platform to use in order to do that versus, say, a ChatGPT or Claude. He went into a bunch of different ones. I'm just saying those three because those are the ones that I've heard of and used. But like he went in on all the different AI platforms that you could use. He had this absolutely incredible presentation lined up where he was going to live audit an Airbnb listing to show the capabilities of what it could do to maximize and optimize your pricing, basically become a revenue manager for you, to do market research on other properties in the market to show you what they have that you don't. And I kid you not, the Claude AI like platform or server went down just for the like 2-hour period that he actually needed it to be live to be able to do this live demo. And I remember sitting next to this woman named Alicia, and she looked at me, even without that live demo, like it didn't happen. Like it couldn't run the comps or anything. She looked at me and she was like, if I only got to hear this presentation, that would make this trip worth it for me. That's how impactful this presentation was. Look, I'm going to have to link him in the show notes too, because he's now building out AI agents to run your business 24/7 without you having to be hands on the wheel the whole time. He broke it down though in a really great way. Basically, like someone stood up and asked, like, at what point does a human actually have to jump back in and do stuff? And he's like, well, AI is not going to be doing maintenance request calls for you. However, they can send the message when something needs to be done to that maintenance request person so that they can execute the task. So it was just really cool. And a little side story that was off stage with him was I actually got to go to dinner with him and a group of us at on night 2. So welcome party is night 1, night 2 for after the first full day. After dinner, we were all walking back to the hotel, and he was on his phone and he was like, let me just show you real quick the agent that I created. And so the agent that he created was in real time, taking into account other properties that had gotten booked and at what price to optimize the pricing for the listing that he was trying to get booked. That in and of itself as an owner and operator is just mind-boggling to me. Okay, let me take you back to Level Up Your Listing 2025. I was not yet using dynamic pricing. Okay, let that sink in. I had a set price for busy season and off season and shoulder season. And then I had a set weeknight price and a set weekend price. After Level Up Your Listing 2025, I adopted Price Labs and thought that was, I still think it's great, but thought that it was the bee's knees and the end all be all. That took me from getting $5.99 a night, upwards of $7.50 a night. And I kid you not, we just got a booking yesterday for over $1,000 a night by using Price Labs. I have set my settings in Price Labs, and if I'm going to be honest, often until about 2 weeks ago, just pre-Level Up Your Listing when I was messing with pricing for Luna, I had set it and forgot it. Like set and forget, don't even touch it anymore because I had what my like ideal settings were in there. So that's already like, no dynamic pricing, that's bottom tier. Dynamic pricing using Price Labs, tier 2. Dynamic pricing using Price Labs with the specific levers or settings that you want, tier 3. Having an AI agent constantly tweaking the price for you based off of the other comps in the area and what they're actively getting booked at, that's like tier 20. Like it just blows my mind that that's even possible. And that's just one of the agents that he created. So basically, This agent can be acting as a VA and responding to guest messages. They can be doing your revenue management. They like so many different things. I can't even put it into words, all the things that he said it could do. One of the other things that I thought was really cool that he did was, like I said, he was a sponsor. So he was constantly just talking to people all throughout the day. He had this little piece of, it looked like a flash drive to me. And he wore it around his neck, and it was called Plaud, Plaud. And so it was recording basically all of the conversations he was having with people, so that when he uploaded it to the AI platform, he was able to recap the entire conversation he had with the person with specific details from that conversation and have the AI create a follow-up email that was specific to that person. My mind is blown. Like, if I had that around my neck the whole time, I would have had a lot more follow-up emails written. Because, I mean, think it's an event that has 300 people in the room. And yes, like if I sat down and like took notes on my notebook after every single conversation, like I could maybe do that. But to have it done automatically and be able to use that as like a touch point, that's crazy. That is incredible. And so anyway, I digress. I ramble on. That was one of the awesome connections. I'm going to have to link Brian and Hatch Capital below in the show notes as well. Good luck and Godspeed to my producer with all of these show notes. But I gotta give you the goods, guys. I gotta give you the goods. Hey host, let me ask you a question. How are you managing your short-term rental operations? If you're still juggling between multiple apps and platforms, it's really time to simplify with Lodgify. I just started using Lodgify for my properties, and I have to say it's a game changer. The unified inbox lets me manage all my messages in one place, and there's no more bouncing back between the Airbnb app and the VRBO app. Their task management system is perfect when scheduling and working with cleaners or contractors. It keeps everyone on track and ensures that nothing slips through the cracks. And one of my favorite features, the direct booking site. It's super easy to set up, very user-friendly, and it helps me reduce my reliance on OTAs like Airbnb and VRBO, and I get to keep more of that booking revenue. Lodgify's support team is also top-notch. They were incredibly responsive and thorough during that onboarding process initially, which made the switch to their platform absolutely seamless. Here's the best part. You can get 20% off your annual subscription when you use my link. Head to www.brandonmarket.co/Lodgify to sign up and start streamlining your property management today. Now I'm going to break down education versus mindset, because both of those were big proponents of the conference. And then I'll get to the grand finale. So some of the education that I mentioned was different this year were those breakout rooms. I had a hard time choosing most of the breakout rooms. Like I said, Heather and I divided and conquered. And so if there was, some at the same time that we both wanted to hear, then I would go to one, she would go to the other. I loved that format. I think that it broke up the day so that we weren't all sitting in the same room the entire time. It gave us room to stretch our legs, and it gave us the ability to kind of like choose our own adventure. When you're in like an even smaller room, because they had like the main stage and then they had the breakout room, it just feels like more personalized, because you're going from a group of like 300 down to potentially like a group of 100. They had some really incredible speakers there, like Federico Zimmerman. He was there with Rev Factor, which is revenue management. He provides that as a service. They had Katie Johnson with STR Law. She specializes in short-term rental law. She's a lawyer. She sells templates. She does consultations. I actually have interviewed her on the podcast in the past and also been on her podcast. I wanted to know more about real estate law. She wanted to know more about the Kentucky adventure. And what that meant in terms of zoning, because that's where basically she thrives and she practices. There were just some really great, like, poignant breakout rooms that you left with very specific action items and pointers. And then we also got to hear from some big names. Like last year, we got to hear from Seth and Tori Bolt of Bolt Farm Treehouse. That was huge. This year we got to hear from Ben Wolf, who has built and exited a micro resort or 2 micro resorts and is building a $14 million micro resort in South Florida now. All around farm stays, experiential stays, unique architecture. So that was really awesome because he was actually talking about it from a marketing standpoint. He was teaching us how to create demand for our property. And one of the main takeaways from that presentation was that you have to get to the traveler long before they are ready to make a booking decision. So he is looking at, like, not to get too jargony with you, but the top of funnel guest who is just mindlessly scrolling Instagram and sees this unique stay that they can then send to a friend. So, like, before they even think about specifically planning a vacation to that area, you are creating interest or, like you said, demand for that property. And they're not even at the starting line yet, but now you're top of mind. So that was really cool. And then we also were able to hear about or hear from Rob Abasolo, who is very deep into the short-term rental industry with a micro resort. And I think he manages like 40 short-term rentals. He's got coaching programs. And he is also the co-founder of Funkit Interiors, which is another short-term rental interior designer. And his co-founder of Funkit is named Bridget, and she was on the design panel. So it was really cool to see like his operations expertise, her design expertise, and how those kind of came together. Although they weren't speaking at the same time, it's very clear to me that like they fill in the weaknesses of the other. Like they each have individual strengths and come together for the Funkit business, which was really cool. And one thing that I would love to like let you guys in on, they actually mentioned that they are transforming basically their differentiator in their design business to become specifically backyard outdoor experiences. So they hosted an after party on the last night, and it was at one of the rentals that they had designed, and it was so cool. They did the comps in that area in Scottsdale and saw that 4-bedroom properties were outperforming 5-bedroom properties. So they took a 5th bedroom and recreated the purpose of that room into being a getting ready room. But the exterior, which is what they now want to be known for, this backyard it felt really big, but it was in a cul-de-sac. It couldn't have been that big. It had a full pool and hot tub. It had a full pickleball court. It had a fire pit area, an outdoor grill area, another turf area with cornhole, and a full exterior seating area. It was gigantic. So when they say they want to be known for it, they aren't playing around. If you have like specific exterior amenity that you want to be brought to life, Funkit is your person, or are your people. So go check them out too. That was like the highlights of the education. There were more, but those are just the ones that are like top of mind right now. The other part that I wasn't really expecting, and I've mentioned this in one of my previous episodes, that like mindset is not really like my thing. I never really believed in it, that I needed to have a good mindset before. I don't know. I've done a lot of growth in the last few months, guys. Maybe like 3 months ago, I got into a little bit more mindset. I like introduced myself to human design, tried to understand the way that like my brain works in terms of, my marriage, in terms of my partnerships in business, in terms of my parenting style, like all the things. I wasn't expecting mindset work from Level Up, but we got it. And I'm so grateful for it. So I'm going to boil it down to the 2 things that like really stuck with me. The first one, and I wish I remembered who said this. I know it was on the design panel, but I can't remember the specific designer that said it. But they were like, you can just do things. It's not that serious. And what she meant in reference to that is like, at some point, nobody has experience in doing what the thing that they want to do is. So it's like, if you want to become an interior designer at the age of 40 with no previous experience, just do it. If you want to renovate an assisted living facility into a boutique hotel, just do it. If you want to start a podcast, just do it. It's not that serious. You don't have to be an expert in it in order to start it. Which brings me to my next piece of mindset advice was from Rob Abasolo. And he was like, when he has a hard time like starting something new, he reminds himself to just punch a hole in the wall. And it's literal and figurative in that, like, I think the example that he was giving, and I might be misquoting him slightly, but the gist is still there. When he started to renovate a house, but he didn't know where to start, or he was a little bit scared to start, he just punched a hole in the wall, because if he punched a hole in the wall, then there was really no turning back. So whatever it is, that idea that you have, just punch a hole in the wall until like you're at the point where you can't turn back. And then after that, you got the ball rolling and you know you can figure out the next steps. And it's funny because I remember having that same sentiment and just like a different words, I guess, when we first moved to Quantico and I had started my photography business. I was looking to get deeper into weddings. I had shot a couple, but I was starting in a new market because we had moved from North Carolina to Quantico with military orders. And I was going to a Rising Tide meeting. If you are in the creative industry, you've probably heard of Rising Tide. I don't think it exists anymore, but it was this really awesome networking group where there were a lot of creatives and we would come together on the first Tuesday of every month. And it was just like a little networking group, have some like light bites, a little bit of education, a little bit of getting to know each other. And I remember sitting in my car and thinking, you just have to have 30 seconds of confidence to walk through that door and introduce yourself and say what you do. 30 seconds of confidence. And it's essentially boils down to the same thing. Just punch the hole in the wall. Just take the first step and the rest will be so much easier. It's often that first step that like becomes our stumbling block. And like, if you get through the first step, you can do anything. So those were the two main pieces of mindset work. You can just do things because you want to and just punch a hole in the wall. Probably not what you were expecting me to say, but that's it. Okay. And now for the grand finale. I first want to play you a snippet of last year's episode. If you didn't already go back and listen to it, I'm going to play that for you right now because I need you to know the back story of what happened at Level Up Your Listing Summit 2025 before the rest of the story is going to make sense. So here goes. But let me bring this back around to my word of the year of confidence. So I had been wanting to introduce myself to Natalie and Tatiana. I wasn't able to speak to Tatiana as an event host. You are very, very busy, but I was able to get in touch with and meet Natalie at the very end of the event. Like things were wrapping up. The sponsors were packing up their booths. And I walked up to her and just said, "Hey, my name is Allie. I wanted to introduce myself and thank you for putting on this amazing event. And mark my words, I will be on your Rising Star panel next year." And it felt like an out of body moment when I was so bold. The 2022 version of Allie would never have said that. And the fact that I don't have a fucking plan of how I'm going to be a rising star, but I will make it happen. And I am not a manifester. I'm not that person, but something about this event just shifted the way that I think and I feel about myself and my business. Like I said, mark my words, I will be on that Rising Star panel next year. And you know what she did? She took out her phone and was like, "What's your Instagram again?" I'm on her radar. I hope that's a good thing. And I hope that I fulfill that very confident remark. And I have faith and confidence in myself that I will. It was absolutely freaking bold and I love myself for it. So yes, I did say that I had done a lot of mindset work, but I have never been woo-woo ever. However, apparently I manifested the fact that I would be named a rising star in the hospitality industry at Level Up Your Listing Summit 2026. And by golly, It came true. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm going to show you something real quick. I got an actual engraved crystal star with my name on it saying that I am officially a rising star in the hospitality industry. I can't put into words how grateful I am, how humbled I am, how my heart just feels happy to have an event that really spiked my trajectory in this industry, recognize me for doing good and positively contributing to this industry. It's just done my heart good. I'm so grateful to Natalie and to Tatiana for the recognition. Sitting here in my office, you guys know my shelves, you know my blue walls, but often it's just me in this office and it can get really lonely. And I am behind a computer a lot, creating beautiful brands for short-term rentals and hotels and micro resorts, plugging away at the keyboard, creating direct booking sites. But like when you see someone else or hear someone else recognize that you're positively contributing, like I'm just really grateful for that. The Rising Star panel, I was up there with 3 other women who got called out of the audience. We didn't know beforehand. It's a complete surprise. I mean, yes, I manifested and I was hoping for it, but like I didn't know that I was going to get called up to the stage to talk on a panel. But the women that I was surrounded with, like one of them at Level Up 25, she was there too. Like you have to have previously attended Level Up. And then from there, Natalie and Tatiana are very conscientious of the people that are in the room. And they watch you, not in a creepy way, but in an encouraging way throughout the year so that they can recognize people's hard work. And so the woman that was sitting directly next to me, her name is Dawn with the Olive Jar. She and her family were severely impacted by the LA fires last year, right before Level Up 25. And so her entire year was rebuilding her business, her like just everything in her life. And it was throughout that year that she also decided to move across country. They're getting ready to embark on a move and they just purchased their own first short-term rental. And it's just been like her just, fighting for the dream. It like I said, it's just humbling, right? Like I haven't had to go through that major life change or that major impactful natural disaster. And she did. And so she was able to tell her story and inspire others that might be going through something similar. Maybe it's not a natural disaster. Maybe it's a family sickness or anything. But like for her to be a beacon of light and me to be able to be right next to her, like it was just humbling. Marissa, one of the other women up there, she is a co-host of 40 plus properties. She's grown her co-hosting business exponentially over the last 12 months since the last Level Up Your Listing. And I am in awe of her as well. And then the last woman that was up there, her name is Lace. She is capital raising for a micro resort in Puerto Rico. And I'm like, what in the world? This is crazy. This is crazy that I get to be, and this is just the 4 women that are like on stage. That's not even the other 296 that are out in the audience. And yeah, I was just super grateful for all of that and for the recognition. Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Natalie. Thank you, Tatiana. At the very end, they asked if you were to give advice for someone who wanted to be on the Rising Star panel next year, of like something that they could incorporate within their lives the next 12 months, what would it be? I had to be the last one to go. And so the previous 3 women all gave such great advice. And I'm like, I don't even know what to say. But my piece of advice is essentially what got me to where I was, is just like, say it out loud. Whatever the dream is, say it out loud. Wherever the property is that you're looking for, say it out loud. Whatever problem you're having in your business, say it out loud, because you never know who's going to be right next to you. Like my good friend Heather, who I met last year at Level Up, you never know who's going to be right next to you, who's willing to pour into your life, to pour into your business, and vice versa. You never like keep your listening ears on, because you never know who you can help. And that's really what it came down to. Was I said it out loud what I wanted, even though I felt like I didn't know if it was actually going to come true. When I told Natalie last year that I would mark my words, I'm going to be on the Rising Stars panel next year, I didn't know that for sure. What I do know is that it damn sure incentivized me to put in the work to be able to be up there. I've grown this podcast by 300% every month since last August. I've had the highest downloads to date of that month. I'm working my ass off behind the scenes, and we closed on Luna. We renovated Luna. We got Luna live. We're adding another unit to Luna. We might be doing this boutique hotel acquisition. And I don't say this to brag by any means. Like I said a couple weeks ago, someone told me I'm boots on the ground kind of advice, and I say it because if I can do it and I don't always know exactly what the best next step is, I punched a hole in the wall, and you can punch a hole in the wall too. I don't actually know how to conclude this because I am just grateful. But if I have to conclude, my 46-minute recording about level up your listing is come join me next year. Be the person right next to me who's learning about AI. Be the person behind me who gets to celebrate, your first short-term rental. Like, there's room for you in the room. We want you there. And I will personally find me, and I will personally introduce you to someone that I think can positively impact your business. I am really grateful and will sing the praises of not only Natalie and Tatiana, but Level Up Your Listing and everything that they've done to grow the brand, because they mentioned it this year. This was year 4 that they just concluded, and the brand's finally outgrowing them. And it's impacting people beyond what they even initially intended for the event. And not to mention, they know how to throw a good party. I got pulled up on stage as a rising star in metallic silver overalls because the theme was Cosmic CEO. So, at least it's memorable. But I would love to meet you in real life. Oh, here's a good way to end it. Okay, let me tell you one more story, and then I will be done. We were in line to get our badges and check in for the welcome party. And I mentioned in line, I said it out loud. I said, I do branding and marketing for short-term rentals, boutique hotels, and micro resorts. And I also host a podcast. And they're like, oh, what podcast do you host? And I said, I host the Brand and Market podcast. And they were like, that's you? And I was like, what? Yeah, that's me. I'm Allie. It's nice to meet you. What's your name? And so I was able to make a real life connection. Like I said, I'm in my office very often recording into a microphone by myself with absolutely no feedback. I'm going to end this with, if you have a question about Level Up, if you have a question about short-term rentals, and that could be operations, that could be branding, that could be marketing, literally social media, anything, I'm an open book. So please DM me on Instagram. DM me so I can get some feedback after being in my office recording for almost an hour by myself. You can find me on Instagram at brandandmarket.co, brandandmarket.co. And it is actually me in the DMs, because I had somebody say, I'd never DM'd you because I thought it was a VA in your social media. And while I do have a VA that helps me with posting on social media, I'm still the one that replies to all the comments. I'm still the one that replies to all the DMs. I'm a real human back here, happy to have those conversations in the DMs. So if you have any questions about short-term rentals, Level Up, branding, marketing, operations, literally anything, hit me up. I'm happy to chat with you. I'll probably send you a voice message just as proof of life that it really is indeed me. Until next week, just punch a hole in the wall. Just punch a hole in the wall. And I'll talk to you then. Cheers to being the best in your brand and your market. You just completed another episode of the Brand and Market Podcast. If you found this helpful, please rate, review, and subscribe to help others find this show and so that you never miss an episode. Don't forget to take a look at the show notes for all the resources mentioned today. See you next Wednesday, and as always, I'm here cheering you on as you build your dream brand and business.